Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Mediocre Dads. I am your host, Quan Wilcox. Of course, you know me as Q. And as you can tell, I'm back in the original studio, ready to give you guys some more action. Me and Gabe are still doing our thing. We always will continue to do our thing as long as we are kind of co-located in the same area, barring the military and whatnot. So, be on the lookout for more episodes for me and him. Obviously, for those who do follow him on social media, you know where he's at, where he's been at, and what he's got going on. So, of course, if you don't follow Snapback Votto, go follow him on all of the social media platforms because he does produce good content. He produces awesome content for his podcast, Comfort and Chaos. But enough of that. Back to Mediocre Dads. Before I get into it, please like, subscribe, and follow the podcast, follow the show, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Please, your support is greatly appreciated. All the people who like and share my stuff, and all the people who go view my stuff, I appreciate it, and please continue to do so. Before I get too deep in the episode, let me just say, being mediocre is a choice. Refuse to be mediocre. Okay, it's our punchline here. We live by it. We stand by it. And if you are a dad, you know exactly what I mean when I say being mediocre is a choice. So on this episode, though, I say every episode is near and dear to my heart because they are, and I want to give you guys some good content in which you could go back to, refer back to, and kind of really think about. Apply it to your life and where it's applicable. And on this episode, I'm going to start off with a story. A story about for me when I was growing up. And for those who know me, I wasn't the best kid, right? And I was always getting in trouble. Me and Queese were always getting in trouble in school. And there was this moment where a realization kind of set in, and it was kind of I didn't change overnight, and I didn't completely change in school, but there was a slight change that I hope, my parents or someone else in my life who noticed this change that occurred. And this change was after a conversation that was had with me, and it wasn't by my dad. I've gotten several conversations from my dad about being good or being better, being responsible. And when you're a kid, the people you are supposed to listen to, you primarily don't listen to because I guess you want to make their lives harder. I don't know. But yeah, I wasn't always listening to my parents. But this conversation, it didn't come from my dad or my mom. It came from a inspirational person in my life at the time, an adult male in my life who I looked up to because he was like, it just was the definition of, in my head, of what a man was supposed to be or look like and embodied. He embodied that, right? He embodied the character and the physique, if you will, of what a man is supposed to be. And it's not to say my dad didn't, but again, I was adopted, and my dad was white, and there was still part of me at that time looking for a black male figure in my life to answer some of those questions, those unanswered questions that my dad wasn't going to be able to answer for me. And so this gentleman, and I won't use his name because, I like to keep people's lives private. But this gentleman had a conversation with me one day in regards to my behavior and how I've been acting and how, there are going to be consequences in my life if I continue to act this way. And he wasn't just talking about, in that particular moment. He was talking about this moment and the moments as I get older. He was referring to those, and that's what I believe. At the time, I was thinking about that right then and there. But the more I think about this conversation we had, he was referring to as I get older and become an adult and responsible, and I'm responsible for myself, my family, my kids, that I cannot continue down this path of negativity or of lack of discipline. And so, he had this conversation, and we talked for some time, and it was a great conversation. I listened, I was intentful. I felt motivated. I felt a sense of mental resilience and toughness that I could beat or defeat, if you will, this behavior of just acting out and being the class clown. Like, I didn't need to do that anymore, especially around this individual. When this individual was present, I didn't need to do that. I didn't need to be that person. I could just be myself, but also be a respectful individual within the classroom. And he told me that people in school are not going to care about the things I did right here and there and then at that moment 10 years ago, or 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, even, or whatever, 3 years from now. They're not even, it's going to be a distant memory. It's not going to be something that they care about. And man, was he right? Because, fast forward to now. So today's the 19th. If you follow me on social media, I'm sure you saw my post. I just officially hit 10 years in the Army, and my birthday was last week on the 12th. So, I say that just to kind of age myself. But anyway, fast forward to now. It's 2023. I'm 29 years old now. I have 2 kids, and I'm 10 years into my career as a soldier, and I can tell you that I have forgotten a lot of things that I said, did, or committed to, if you will, when I was in 5th to 6th grade, or even in high school. Like, I can't even remember. I can barely remember middle school. I do have some great fond memories from middle school, but like, I can't remember a lot of the things, those daily things that I did during class that I thought, man, I'm gonna remember this forever, and whatever the case might be. So, him telling me that and not having this concept or understanding of how time worked to the magnitude that I do now, I was just, again, I was listening. I was intentful because I appreciated what he was saying, but at the same time, I was like, yeah, but you're like an old guy, so you don't know, you don't understand what I'm going through. You think you do, because when you were growing up, times were different, and, kids are different nowadays. What we're interested in nowadays are different. We got video games, we got cell phones, and I mean, like, they weren't cool cell phones. The Sidekick was cool when I was a kid. And so I don't know if my viewership knows. I lied. I know my viewership knows what a Sidekick is. If you had a Sidekick, it was like the coolest thing in the whole world, as well as the Razr when the Razr phone came out. Anyway, I'm gonna get down that rabbit hole. But I'm thinking this individual doesn't know or can possibly understand what I'm going through and how I'm thinking, why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm thinking he's just trying to give me his wisdom that is coming from nowhere, out of books, if you will. He's just reading books, and he's just like, this is some good wisdom to impart onto the younger generation, right? Not realizing that he's speaking from a place of a personal experience. And, and when we're children, we just don't listen. And I say that because, if for you, those who have kids, like, kids don't listen to you for whatever reason. And even though you want what's best for them, they tend to always want to follow the path in which they want to follow, which, hey, by all means, follow the path that you believe in, which is meant for you. Obviously, if it's given to you from the Lord, then please, by all means, follow that. Us parents are not meant to, hold you back, if you will. But yeah, no, he continued this conversation, and he kind of finished with, he goes, you're probably going to forget this, that we had this conversation. And he said, you're probably not going to think back to this talk 2 weeks from now. You're just going to probably forget about it. It's going to be a thing of the past. He goes, but my hope is when you get older and wiser, that you'll think back to this conversation, and you'll think back to this moment and when me and you were just talking and what we were talking about, and how, important discipline and how important and effective discipline is, especially in a young man's development in life. And so that, of course, led me to here and to us having this conversation, and kind of leads me into the main topic of this episode, which I'm going to tell you what the topic is, and I'm sure some of you might think, like, man, this just kind of sounds like a repeat of previous episodes. And it might, but it's different. I promise it's different in the sense that I'm talking from about different points here rather than about discipline or whatever the case might be. It's coming from a different angle, if you will, on applying real life experience to and putting it into actual work or effort, right? Or into play, if you will. And so what I mean by that, this episode is focusing on, young men's development from that age when they were kids to becoming young men, to working their way to adolescence, and therefore becoming adults. And I say for young men, because I was a young man at one point in my life. I have daughters now, and so I haven't experienced that. I don't know. I'm not at that point where I can impart wisdom on you on, from that phase of being a child to a young woman. When I reach there, we'll talk about it. For now, we're going to talk about young men, and so this is for my audience who has sons. And if you want sons, please, by all means, I appreciate it still if you continue to listen. But so young men are just full of energy, and from a young age, most of them are told, like, yo, you have ADHD, you have ADD, you have these things, you can't sit down. It's just like, because young men are they're ready to see the world, experience the world at such a young age, without realizing that they need to take those baby steps to get to when they're ready to really experience the world, if you know what I mean. And what I mean by that is, when I was in, what grade was I in? Let's call it 5th or 6th grade. I don't remember what age I turned 12, or 12 to 14, if you will. But when I was in 5th and 6th grade, I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm becoming a man. You know what I mean? Like, I fully believed that I was a man, or like turning into a man, and I knew what manhood looked like and what it was supposed to be. Like, I had this idea in my head that I understood manhood, and boy, was I wrong. Let me tell you, first and foremost, I was totally wrong. I did not know I didn't have a clue what I was talking about or where my head was, but I had formed this into my head that I was a man, and so I would carry myself in a manner and I thought was appropriate to be. I can still be a kid, but I can still be a man. When I need to put my foot down, if you will, I can still be a man. And that didn't go so well, because of course I didn't know, again, what a man was. And so there were a lot of times where my dad definitely had to kind of cock his head to the side and say, "Excuse me, who are you talking to?" You know what I mean? I'm sure we've had several moments with us parents have had several moments with our kids where we have to kind of turn our head and be like, "I don't know who you think you're talking to," right? Anyway, and so I kind of thought I had it figured out. And I, as I said, I was wrong, but it's my point for bringing this up. And because I want to give you background, I want to give you context. And my point of bringing this up is there was an incident. Again, I'm not going to bring up names, but I have a friend, and me and my wife have a friend of ours, who is, going through what she's going through. So she's raising her 3 kids by herself. And you know, her boys they're phenomenal and really great boys, you know, and they need more structure, right? Because they only have their mom, and their mom can only do so much. So she does rely on those Christian men and those who she trusts and to be around her sons, to kind of help put the foot to butt at times, if you know what I mean, right? We're not like harming her kids or anything, but, you know, kind of helping with that, laying the law and giving them that example of what a man looks like and does at times. And so, you know, there was this moment where one of her sons was acting up, and he's the middle son, and he was acting up, and I got a call because we all happened to be hanging out, but they went to the store and asking for some assistance because he just wasn't having it, you know. And the group that was together, we were all together when we got the call. Initially, the initial reaction was like, yeah, hey, we're gonna send Quan. He's gonna come down there, right, and he'll like put, you know, foot to butt and handle it, take care of the situation, if you know what I mean. And initially I thought like, yeah, this is what I'm going to go do. I'm about to go down there and I'm about to go handle this. And on the drive there, I really was thinking to myself like, man, this is my kid. It's not my place to put my hands on him. But at the same time, would that be an effective method to get him to not continue this behavior? Would he leave here thinking like, yep, I got popped in the butt or whatever, in the mouth, whatever it is, and now I know that I shouldn't be acting this way and everything's going to be different now, right? I said, or what would be a more effective way to really impact his life in a small moment for him, right? What would leave an everlasting memory or something of him in his mind where he's like, you know, I could have gotten, you know, popped. I could have gotten yelled at, right? I could have raised my voice and said, I'm man, listen to me, roar type thing, right? And please understand, like, these are methods in which have proven to be an effective form of parenting for millennium, right? However, as I've said previously, you know, emotional intelligence is a beautiful thing, right? And one of my biggest things is wanting to be able to part on young men in particular is having the ability to understand our emotions and work through those emotions. And so on my drive there, and it's like, understand guys, it's one of those 10-minute drives that's like, yeah, it's like 10 minutes, but it's 10 minutes if I get stuck at the stop sign for too long or at the stoplight for too long, you know, like if these two lights, if I miss the green light, then it's going to take me 10 minutes. But if I get through these two lights or in the stop sign, I'll be there in like 5 or 6 minutes, right? And the longest part is finding them in the parking lot, right? So anyway, on the way to that, to meet them, I'm thinking like to myself, like, what would be the best way to inflict a form of punishment that would get him to really think about it? And I think back to myself growing up. I think back to the conversation I had with this gentleman who owed me nothing, wasn't required to have this conversation with me, but took the time to really understand me and listen to what I had to say. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go in there and I'm going to talk to him. And because, he's at the age where he's finding himself as a young man and wanting to be seen as a man. He wants to be identified as a man. He still wants to do kid-like things, but he still wants to be seen as a man. Even though he's I think he's like 12 to 13, he's at that age where he wants to be seen as a man. And he wants that recognition and that validation from men that he respects and other men are in his life. And so me being one of those men, I believe I'm one of those men. I thought, you know what? Instead of going there raw charging, like look at me, I'm strong, I'm freaking, I can, whatever, right? Excuse me. I was like, okay, let me have a different approach on this. And again, not gentle parenting. And he's not my son to parent. However, when called upon to assist in parenting, if you will, or to be a fatherly figure / male figure in this young man's life, in particular for this conversation, I immediately think like a dad. And so, I just had to think back to what would I want? How would I want to be talked to? What would work for me and still get the point across? And so anyway, that point was have a conversation with him. So I show up, I pull into the parking lot, find them in the parking lot, I back in, and the moment I get there, you can see the anger because he's in the car in the backseat. It's just the anger and the toughness on his face that he's showing, right? He's emotional, he's angry, he's sad. But the only emotion he knows how to show is anger, because he can trust that emotion to get him through anything in life, especially as a man. He can rely on anger is going to be more effective than sadness, right? And so he's showing me anger. And again, a lot of this is body language and watching these young men's and these kids' body language. And so I come around and I try to open the door, but he's holding down the lock. And so, his mom unlocks the car. I open the door, but he's just pushing down the lock every time she presses unlock. I said, don't even worry about it. Let's do it in his arena, if you will, because this can still be in an effective conversation, even in his realm. Right? I don't need to pull him out the car and make him feel little or small standing in front of me, when I want him to listen and understand what I'm trying to say to him. So I go around and I'm in the front seat and I'm looking back at him from the front seat. I'm saying, and I start my conversation. I said, hey man, what's going on? What happened? I was like, you guys just left. You're going to the store. Things seemed good. You guys were happy. I'm sad you were leaving, but things were good. Like what happened between now, or then and now? And at first he didn't say anything. And his brothers were sitting right there. It was raining outside, so they tried to chime in, but I immediately let them know, like, hey, no, this is a conversation between me and him. This is not for you two. You two are going to be here to listen, but you two are not going to interject. That's not the time and place, and this is not for you guys to interject. And so they stopped, and then I continued with him. I said, hey man, just kind of let me know, like from start to finish, kind of telling me what happened. Took a couple of seconds, and he finally told me what happened, and how, they wanted, initially they were going to go to McDonald's and then go to the store. But then mom made the better financial decision. Hey, I'm going to take you to H-E-B instead. And then we're going to go home, because instead of going to McDonald's, paying what you're paying for McDonald's nowadays, which is astronomical in my opinion, but still it'd be cheaper to go to H-E-B. So she pulls into H-E-B and takes them to H-E-B so they can get some, they can pick one or two things, a drink, a meal, or not a meal, but a snack of some sorts, healthier one for that matter, to go on the road. And kids, being a kid, not understanding that, only heard McDonald's and wanting McDonald's, he got upset that couldn't get the McDonald's like originally said. And so he's telling me this, and I'm listening. I'm listening, because in listening, I'm telling you, if you can show intent, and when you're listening, active listening, they receive it. Whether at the moment they don't feel that you're not, at the moment they're still upset, and you're not able to see that they're receiving the active listening. I promise you, they're receiving it well, because they want to be recognized as a man again. They want to be seen as, hey, I'm that guy. I'm a man. I'm him type thing, And so he continues to talk, and I let him say his whole spiel, and he tells me about everything that he did. And I say, hey man, thank you. I appreciate you telling me that. I appreciate you telling me what you did. Now I said, however, understand there are consequences to everything that we do in life, negative or positive. And I said, it's unacceptable for you to act like that. And I said, are you paying for this car? He's like, no. Okay. Are you paying for McDonald's? He's like, no. Are you paying for the food in H-E-B? He's like, no. I was like, all right, man. So hear me when I say this. While you wanted that, that's not up to you. That's up to your mom, right? So that's one. I said, number two, I said, hey man, you have a younger brother who watches what you do. Do you think that's an appropriate behavior to show him that when you get upset, this is how you act? He's like, no. I was like, do you want him acting that way? Because when you're older and he acts that way, especially to your mom, you're going to step up and defend your mom because you know that's your mom. He's like, yeah, right. So why would you do that to her? But you would say it's unacceptable for him to do that. I was like, can't do that. I said, then I went to I said, hey man, you're angry. I can still see it. And at this point, he's fighting back tears. And I don't say these things to like belittle this gentleman or this young man or make him feel small or less than. I say this because it's important for y'all to understand, right? Like, this young man is fighting back tears because he's angry, but he's sadder. Yeah, he's sad more than he is angry. And so he's fighting back tears. And so it's like one or two tears are coming out. And I'm like, man, listen. I said, I know you're angry still. I said, but man, you cannot allow that anger to control you. I was like, because when it controls you, it consumes you. And when it consumes you, you forget about everything else around you. And then when the dust settles, man, and you have to live with those consequences of everything you did when you were angry. I was like, but the moment it happens, you have to learn how to take a deep breath and take a step back. I was like, because as men, everybody expects us to when we get angry, we can punch things, we can put holes in walls, we can push people, we can even almost get on the verge of fighting others. I was like, and they see that in some circles, they see that as an acceptable way for men to really let their anger out because we're men and we can do whatever we want. But I said, the reality is, no, we cannot do that. We as men need to know when to ball our fists and when to say, hey, this behavior is unacceptable. Now, I'm 29 years old, and I've been on this world obviously for 29 years, but I've been in the Army for 10 years now. And so this took some learning for me, and I'm still not great at it. However, do I expect this 12, 13-year-old to tomorrow, the very next day, to be able to apply this to his life? No, but I wanted him to hear this. And so I continue the conversation where I say, hey man, anytime you feel yourself getting angry, I was like, anytime. And you know when you're about to get angry, instead of letting that first thought, that initial thought take over of I can get angry now and I'm going to do all these things. I said, take a step back and take a deep breath. I was like, take 3 deep breaths, take a step back. And I said, I promise you that second thought will be the thought that will determine, or will be probably be the better thought for then to determine what your future looks like from that moment. And I said, your mom loves you so much. I was like, you guys have no idea the things that your mom deals with in the background. You have no idea what your mom does to make you guys happy. And I was like, this is for all of you. I was like, your mom puts you guys to bed and, puts you to bed every night, goes to bed herself, wakes up in the morning before you guys are awake, and then says to herself, how can I make my sons happy? What can I do to make give my sons a better life, a happier life? And I was like, you guys don't see these things. You don't hear these things. All you see are the rewards and the benefits of all the things that she does to do that for you. And I was like, if you could walk a mile in your mom's shoes, I said, I promise you, you wouldn't be acting this way. You would be like, nope, listen, we got to act better, guys. We got to do better. We have to do better. And I said, you won't get that now. But I said, when you have your own kids, when you become a man, I said, you're going to understand, and some things come to light about your mom. You're going to really understand what she was doing for you. I said, for now, all you have is my word and me telling you that the things that your mom does for you is something that you cannot take for granted. Because then when you take it for granted and it's no longer there, you're going to be confused, lost, and dazed. And I said, man, your mom is over here crying and upset because she wants to give you the world, but she doesn't know how to give you the world. And then as well as make sure that you guys can get home, but she can put gas in the car and she can feed you. And it's not to say like she's broke or she's poor or anything, but she, raising 3 boys, especially 3 young men, you have to be financially, you have to take care of yourself financially. You can't just go out and waste and blow money. And that's for anybody raising kids, right? More than one kid. You have to be able to manage your money better. And so I was like, man, look, she's crying. She's crying because she's sad, because she's like, I thought that I was like, yeah, McDonald's would be great. But like, I guarantee you, I said, hey man, I wasn't here, but I guarantee you her thought process was, I can take you to H-E-B and you guys can get more bang for your buck. Then you can get fries and a cheeseburger and a drink, right? Or you come to H-E-B, I mean, they got a burger, but you can get multiple snacks of things and a drink, and it'd be more worth it for you. Her thought process was how to make them happier and what would make them happier and what would make him happier, rather than, well, H-E-B's right here, so I'm going to go to H-E-B because that's what I just want to do, and blase, blase. I was like, nah, man, it was for her because it was for you because she does everything for you. And, in that conversation, I'm getting a little, I was getting choked up myself because I'm just sitting here thinking like, man, you guys have no idea how good you have it. Because then I kind of thought back to when I was growing up and all those times I was being bad, and my parents had to punish me and my brother or for whatever we did. But then thinking back to like all those things that they wanted to give us, but you can't reward bad behavior. So then it's like, it saddens you because you're just like, man, if you just listen just a little bit more, man, I promise you, I'm here to give you the world. And man, I just need you to be able to receive it. But you have to there are things that are required on your part in order to receive these rewards and these benefits and this joy and this happiness that I'm trying to give you, right? You have to be you have your own personal accountability and responsibility that you're obligated for. And that's what I was trying to instill to this, or give to this young man. And in part, I think I did, right? All in all, towards the end of the conversation, he was kind of letting more tears come out. And I said, hey man, listen, it's okay. I was like, but you cannot let your anger determine what your actions are. It's not to say, pin it up inside, but it's to say, okay, hey, I need to take a breather and maybe ask, hey, why can't we go to McDonald's instead of HEB? You said McDonald's, and I've really got excited for McDonald's. Expressing how you felt and why you felt it, rather than just getting upset. I was like, you need to learn how to try to express yourself so that other people understand how you're feeling. If you're feeling angry, you're feeling upset, like, hey, I'm upset because, you said we could go to McDonald's, and I got excited in my mind about going to McDonald's and wanted to go to McDonald's, and then you immediately change it to HEB and said we're going to HEB, and didn't give an option to say, can we change our mind back to go to McDonald's? And McDonald's was, on the corner from where HEB is. And I said, like, hey man, next time it's just a conversation. I said, it really is. I guarantee you, if it's just a conversation, you say, hey mom, like, I really got excited for McDonald's. And is there any way we can go to McDonald's? Is there any way that maybe I could just get McDonald's and they can get something from HEB? I was like, but it's a conversation. Now, it doesn't mean she's going to say yes, but it means it helps her to understand why you were upset, and it helps you guys to have a conversation about it. And then for her, to give you an explanation, she doesn't owe you one, but to give you an explanation to say, hey, this is why we're going to HEB, and this is why I want to go to HEB. Again, doesn't owe you one, doesn't have to give you one, but again, a way in which we can, you can guys can come to an understanding for each other. We had a good conversation, and we finished the conversation, and he was still upset. He finally got him out of the car, and I told him, I said, hey, come out of the car, and come out of the car. I said, hey, come out of the car and come talk to your mom. I said, you still angry? You still owe her an apology. I said, apologize. Give her a hug. I was like, she's sad just like you're sad. And I said, man, the two people that you guys want the most are the two people that both of you're angry at, but the person you want to hug right now is each other. I said, tell your mom you're sorry and give her a hug. And I said, you might still be angry afterwards. And I said, the car ride is the time for you to really kind of take a breather and kind of sit back and just process that being upset. But for now, come give your mom a hug and apologize. And man, he got out of the car. I dapped him up, kind of gave him a little bro hug, if you will. And he gave his mom a hug, and he told her he was sorry. And I told him, I said, hey man, there's going to be more moments like this in your life, but it's up to you to decide, what you do from the moment that anger comes. And they went home, and I went back to our group, our original group that we were all hanging out with, and they were like, there was this initial moment where they're all like, oh, did you really give it to him? Did you let him know, like, yeah, like he was wrong for that? Like, did you basically put hands on him and like, rough him up a little bit? And I said, no, I just had a conversation with him. I said, I have a conversation with him because he responded better to the conversation, and he wanted to be seen. He wanted to be seen as a man. And now he's still young to be considered, for me to consider him a man. But he wanted to be respected, or someone enough to respect him enough to have that conversation with him as a man would, rather than come say, hey, I'm an adult, you're a kid, and I can put my hands on you and show you that there's consequences to your actions, right? Now, it's not to say that spanking or whatever is a bad form of parenting or punishment, but there's a time and a place. I always believe there's a time and a place, right? Not every punishment requires a kid to be spanked. And so, anyway, we kind of had this conversation where one of my friends was very like, nah, I would have, I would let him have it. I was like, I couldn't. I was like, because he wanted to be respected. He just wanted to be seen as a young man coming into manhood. And I wanted to, and I felt compelled to give it to him. And boy, did he receive that well. Did he take that on well? And so, difference of opinions on how it was handled, but I felt it was handled amicably and it was good, and I was happy with the conclusion. And so I say all of that to say, guys, that there are different ways in which, as men and as fathers, we can handle the young men in our lives, whether this your sons or your cousins or your nephews in your life, right? And appropriate time for laying down the law, appropriate time to say, hey, man, let's have this conversation as men and let's go from there and see what it goes from, where it takes us. But what I've found is young men respect and they listen more when they're seen as men. Again, they're not, but when they're seen in a way in which they feel it gives them that validation that they're looking for, they respect you more and they hear you more, and then they listen more and they listen better. So that's my wisdom to you guys. I wanted to part with you before I completely part with you. I wanted to read a verse from the Bible here, from my Bible, about fatherhood and kind of how I felt this was applicable, because we can I'll give you two verses, right? I'll give you two verses, and because one can be the way where you lay down the law, and the other one is, in my opinion, one of the best ways in which you will receive your children, and those sons and those nephews will receive you better and receive what you're telling them a lot better. So the first one is Proverbs 22:6. Direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. So my hope was to direct him on a path in which of respect for his mom, respect for adults, and respect for other people in his life, and that will follow him and take him further. And when he becomes adult, something in which he can stand firm upon and say, hey, I was taught respect at a young age, and I'm going to continue to be respectful to those around me because I want respect in my life. Another one that might seem like, I'll lay down the law, right? It will speak to this. In my opinion, those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them. So it mentions, sparing the rod, and a lot of us interpret that to be spanking. But my favorite part of this one is, and again, it's Proverbs 13:24. But my favorite part of those is those who love their children care enough to discipline them. Discipline comes in many forms and fashion, right? It doesn't just need to be a physical form of discipline. And so that what for me was like, nah, this is discipline, right? Getting scorned, you're getting talked to, and letting this person's, your father or a fatherly figure or a manly figure, is letting you know, like, they're disappointed in you because they expected more from you. They've seen better from you and they're expecting more from you. And then the final one that I'll leave you guys with is Proverbs 1:8. My child, listen when your father corrects you. Don't neglect your mother's instruction. And for me, that one is the big one, right? Because it mentions the mother's instruction. And it was his mother in which he wasn't listening to. And, I told him, I was like, hey, man, you be grateful for your mom and how present she is and how much she loves you. I was like, because, there's so many different people in their lives who don't have their mothers, or their mothers don't care about them. I said, man, when I was growing up, again, you all know I was adopted, but when I was first adopted, and I would get in trouble, there were many times I would cry for my mom to come pick me up. And, she never showed up, obviously, but, I told him, I said, hey, man, I was like, man, your mom's crying, man. She's upset because she's sad because she loves you so much and she doesn't want to hurt you, but she wants you to see you happy. She wants to see that smile and that joy in your life, and she wants to be the one to bring it, not cause pain and anger in you. I was like, but I said, man, when I was a kid, I used to cry for my mom. And he knows I was adopted. And I was like, I used to cry for my mom every night, and she never came. I was like, but you have a mom right here who's willing to give you, who's offering you the world. All you got to do is do your part. I say, so be grateful what you have, because I promise you, I was like, some people in their lives don't have it, and you'll see when you get older what I'm talking about. So anyway, that is it for this episode. I hope it wasn't too doom and gloom. Thank you for joining me, Mediocre Dads, on this episode. Again, like, subscribe, share. Go follow me on Instagram, Facebook. Go follow or go like and subscribe on YouTube's Rumble, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Again, I'm Quan Wilcox of Mediocre Dads. I go by Q, of course. Being mediocre is a choice, and refuse to be mediocre, guys. Q out.